Hello and welcome to Knowle West Media Centre's 2020 celebration event. This isn't usually how we do these events, but we thought, seeing as we can't get together in person, we'd provide a digital alternative. Over the next hour or so, we're going to be sharing stories and films from across our programme to give you an insight into the fantastic work that people in Knowle West and Bristol have been doing this year, finding new ways to create, to make, to live and work and support people in their community. The live stream has 6 sections, and each section will be introduced by a member of our team, so you know what's coming next. But just to give you a preview, in the next hour you can expect films made by our collaborating artists, animations and content made by young people, behind the scenes footage and lots of personal stories. At the end of the live stream, we'll head straight into our annual general meeting for 2020, where you can see our team and hear what they have to say, ask your own questions, and find out what's coming up in 2021. If you'd like to interact with us during the live stream, just send us a message via one of our social channels. We're on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at Knowle West Media, at KWMC The Factory, and at Jump KWMC. Creativity, collaboration and community have always been at the heart of what we do, but this year they've been more important than ever. And we hope this live stream will give you a glimpse into all of those things in action. Enjoy the show.
Despite the challenges of lockdown and not being able to engage with young people in person, our Jump Studios team have continued to support creators aged 10 to 30 to learn, make, stay connected and explore their creativity. In just the 6 months from May to October 2020, we engaged with 85 young people in 40 online sessions and 42 socially distant sessions, a total of more than 125 hours. 8 young people took part in a week of work experience virtually, while 15 people successfully completed an Arts Award qualification. This section includes a series of films and animations made by the young people and emerging creatives supported by Jump Studios this year. Lockdown News by Dee is a short news show about a family of 5 during COVID lockdown. Everyday activities are presented as breaking news, from her mother's cooking to the weekly shop. It also includes the indoor weather report. Inner by Mevis contrasts the loneliness and isolation we can feel during COVID lockdown and how we can appear to others. This section concludes with animations made by the young people during their virtual work experience programme this summer.
We begin our programming today with some breaking news. We've been receiving reports of the troubling likelihood of the cousins staying with us. The cousins are 6 and 8 years old and both approximately 500 pounds and 7 inches tall. Their extended stay with us will have far-reaching and serious consequences, namely 2 headaches an hour and depletion of snacks in the pantry. In other news, Dad's bought a brand of bread we're unfamiliar with. Let's go live to our correspondent, me, in the living room. We've always been a 50-50 Kingsmill family, but due to current circumstances we had to adjust. At 9:55 a.m. this morning my dad brought back the shopping, but instead of what we're used to, he brought back Hovis soft white. Will the family adjust or will we have to forgo eating bread altogether? Thank you! Lastly tonight, Mom's cooking an authentic Mexican menudo, in which the main ingredient is
Castor milk.
The aroma of the meal is unbearable and it has been reported that people all over the house are failing to concentrate on their Netflix binge. As of this moment, we have not been granted access to the kitchen and Mum has declined to comment. And now, the weather.
Thank you, Ayan. It's room temperature.
Thank you and good night.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
How are you finding working from home?
Enjoying the freedom of being creative in my own space. Yeah.
Ooh, I really like your outfit. You always look so ready.
Thank you.
So, like, what projects are you focusing on at the moment?
Lots of writing, designing, being creative. And yourself?
Same, you know. A lot of people are complaining about being at home, but I love it. So easy working from home.
Same. I'm enjoying being at home.
Doesn't it get lonely though, like living on your own?
No, no, I'm not that kind of person that really needs people around me, so I don't really get bored that much.
Wow.
I've been doing a lot of exercise, lots of running, you know, stuff like that.
Same. Like I never used to exercise, but now I do it more than I ever have in my life. So I guess this whole lockdown is kind of a blessing in disguise, right?
Isn't it? Isn't it just? Yeah, it's just awesome. I think it's really great.
I have like my entire family here. So many people just yelling, and like 8 people just running into each other, yelling each other's ears, fighting about what to watch on TV. So I don't know. I don't think I could adjust to living alone.
Yeah, it sounds like it's quite hectic.
Yeah.
Like the families in the films you've just seen, most of us have been spending more time at home this year. Many artists have been finding new ways to make work. The award-winning visual and performance artist Richard Layzell has made a short film reflecting on his work with KWMC since 2010 and weaving together his work experiences in the Knowle West community. Richard told us, "During the first lockdown, I started to think about how I could keep making art. It took quite a while. Then I had the idea of writing stories about different places where I've worked, then recording these and making a film to go with the sound recordings. The Data Says It All is the second of these, made especially for KWMC. It was very enjoyable and also challenging to find a way to put together many of the memorable experiences I've had in Knowle West. Enjoy!"
It all began in Shanghai one Saturday morning in 2010 when I stood on the corner of Shillong and Longhu roads, counting vehicles without exhaust pipes. 72, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 73, 74, 35, 36, 738. These were bicycles of all kinds and the occasional electric scooter. I counted 1,000 in half an hour. I wanted to make an environmental comparison with the West, a comparison that would be very different today now that the car has stepped up to take its rightful place in an even more developed Chinese economy. I had a bike myself to travel around the square mile where I lived and worked in the south of the city. It was called Shuang Zulong, which ironically translates as bipedal, because one of the pedals actually fell off the first time I used it. Anyway, this was data collected, and when the Knowle West Media Centre advertised a project called Whose Data a year later, I talked about this Shanghai experience in my application, and I remembered it when the work began. This time the counting happened in shops, the convenience stores of Knowle West. I stood close to the till trying to be invisible, noting down the categories of what people bought rather than the brands, like soft drink, energy drink, booze, fags, tobacco, lottery, white bread, eggs, crisps, biscuits, milk, newspaper, paypoint, sweets, pie, onion. I wasn't aiming to be judgmental about their shopping, but when I read from these lists at a public event a few weeks later, a local councillor in the audience described this as significant research into cultural deprivation. I also looked at biodiversity, at the variety of other species living here. And I had Steve, the media centre's then caretaker, as a special data bank. It soon became clear that his knowledge and understanding of local wildlife was a part of him, of who he was. I borrowed a sound recorder and met Steve just before dawn. He took me to the Wills site, the Bommy, the Black Path, and the Horse Field. The birds were enough, and he knew it. The dawn choruses became fantastical symphonies of competing soundscapes, natural and man-made. In between recordings, Steve spoke shyly about his boyhood experiences as a poacher, and with authority that we were standing in a green oasis for plants, birds, and other creatures. From their perspective, Knowle West is a rich source of food, cover and opportunity. Up here, the pattern of open land, housing and the many patches of green space are only interrupted by the major highway that is Hartcliffe Way. Still thinking about data, I came back a year later with another idea, this time related to binary code. I would visit every street in Knowle West and photograph all the house numbers that contained a 1 or a 0 or both. These were obviously numbers 1, 10, 11, 100, 101, 110 and 111. It took quite a while. The photos were then displayed side by side in the gallery, and all the residents of the featured houses were invited to a special event to find their number on the wall, with one lucky winner going away with a Morrison's voucher for £50. Then came the Artist Hotel project, joining in the research for the idea of imagining an artist hotel for Knowle West. Some of my research focused on hotels in London and the South East that branded themselves as artistic, including the Artist Residence Hotel in Brighton and the St Martin's Lane Hotel in London. I like to see hotel lobbies and foyers as semi-public spaces that can be occupied, and that's what I did. I asked the price of a room. Cost of a double room is here for the night.
It varies day to day. Our rates change. What it looks like at the moment. This time of year we are really busy, so the rates probably are a little bit higher. 371. That includes the VAT for a double.
I wandered around to get the ambience, sometimes behaving on the edge of performance, to see how far I could go before being stopped. When it came to the presentation of my findings, I'd not long been back from a visit to Ethiopia, where corrugated metal sheets are a base building material for many homes and shops. So I decided to include hammering on a piece of locally sourced corrugated steel as an antidote to the glamorous hotel culture that I'd been inhabiting. Artists don't need a swanky hotel, nor does Knowle West. The landscape of the place on the hill in Bristol BS4 is always with me. I've spent long enough to get under its surface and be inside its weather. I've walked those streets, every one, seen the sun rise and set, explored the wilderness at the back of Greenfield School with the kids, been humbled by Steve's instinctive knowledge, looked up and looked down, listened and watched. BS4 was even with me in the Alice Springs desert and underneath the Montreal highways. Pretty clear evidence there of the concrete crumbling away. Again, when I was working on my new ecological project called The Naming in 2018. As a part of this, I came back to Bristol last year to explore the huge tidal range of the River Avon and the Bristol Channel, the second highest in the world, and the potential pollution in the Malago River using a lo-fi method involving unbleached tampons and UV light. The results were not conclusive, but veered on the side of not polluted, which was great news. This year I was further along with the naming and keen to share my discoveries with the people of Knowle West. I wanted to give them a direct experience of ecology in an event called Not Green. So, in January I spent a couple of days looking around and planning. Walking down the slope opposite the park centre in Daventry Road and into the trees, I'm surprised to find a flowing stream. This reminds me of Mardalsfossen waterfall in Norway, a place I'd been to the previous summer to see the site of the first ever eco-action that was led by the philosopher Arne Næss in 1970. It's one of Europe's most spectacular waterfalls. This stream here is tiny, but the sight and sound of running water are enough to make this connection. There's a distinctive large tree in the garden of the old vicarage next to St Barnabas Church. It's some kind of maple, Jim thinks. As a tree expert, he explains that this tree has been pollarded. I'm only familiar with pruning and coppicing. He tells me that pollarding is to encourage growth and to maintain a regular shape. I think of the lines of plane trees in London that have their limbs cut to stumps every year. And I wonder what you call this. Mutilation, perhaps. In the last week of February, as the day approaches, the weather forecast is worrying. Expect heavy rain, hail, and very strong winds. Although we've asked people to bring waterproof clothing, strong shoes and an umbrella, the wind will be almost gale force. This could be tricky. Time to rethink. I go back to our meeting place at the park centre to look for ways to keep dry. There's a neglected lobby tucked away opposite the reception desk. It's enclosed and quiet, and I'll be able to play sounds and video here to the assembled group at the beginning. Then I remember one of the main themes of my bigger project, about how the naming of other species can create a separation, as if identification is enough. Oh look, this is an oak tree. That's a hedge sparrow, it's in a hedge. Can you hear the woodpecker? It's pecking wood. That's why it's called a woodpecker. Get it? So I decide to find alternative names for some of the trees that live around the edge of the park centre complex, to give them their own personal identity. Like Xylophilos, Tempest, and Sandra. So we'll start inside and then go inside-outside to the courtyard to visit a silver birch tree standing in an impressive brick planter made by the park's post-16 construction students in 2012. And then we'll come back inside to go outside where we find a forgotten pond, once funded by the Prince's Trust. And notice some savagely pruned trees at the end of some adjoining back gardens, hacked down without any respect for their feelings or dignity. And now we go all the way outside. We move across Daventry Road to look at the well-shaped tree in the vicarage and pass through the metal gate and into the majesty of the Bommie. The rain has mainly kept off, but the wind is picking up. We carefully make our way down the steep grass slope with small sideways steps. Someone is wearing trainers and becomes mud splattered in a flash as they slip. The rest of us arrive safely to find the stream still fast flowing and some trees of unknown species. Aha! No name. I climb one of these trees as a gesture of connection and to surprise the others. I suddenly feel that this is my land where I belong. Down here it's deep landscape, heavy with trees and the sound of running water, yet we're only a few metres from a busy road. People chat and hang out as if this is an achievement and a destination. I can see what they mean. Then the hail rain arrives, lashed by the wind, and we climb back up the hill to the church, where Sam, the long-haired vicar with a nose ring, has already put the soup on the stove. Once we're all inside, he unlocks the door to the interior garden that no one knows about except him and me. There was a time in the late 1920s when the farmers sold their land to the council and put the money in the bank. It was theirs to sell, that's how they saw it. And once it was sold, they soon forgot about it and had no interest in seeing the houses and schools being built over the hillsides where their animals used to graze. Or that it was now called Knowle West. They went on a lavish holiday with some of the proceeds and wondered if they should have held out for more cash per acre. With modern farming methods and the decline of hedgerows, those same fields would now be edge to edge, making it hard for wildlife and wildflowers to get a grip. And then there would be the latest chemical pesticides to deal with as well. So, up here, over these 90 years, the evolution of Knowle West BS4 has proved to be a huge bonus for Bristol's biodiversity. It's become a thriving ecosystem and a green corridor that puts local farmland to shame. The data says it all.
Like Richard and the artists we've supported this year, the team at our Innovation and Digital Making Space, KWMC The Factory, have also been doing things differently. As COVID lockdown prevented us from being able to run training programmes in person, we've developed a series of blended training programmes where people can access support and resources online, get hands-on with craft kits at home and use digital manufacturing tools at the factory when it has been safe to do so. As a result, participants in the Positive Negative Positive 2D design course with Walter Jack Studio designed nearly 50 products to be cut in brass. The factory also collaborated with Philwood Community Centre, Art and Energy and local people to gather nominations for a Walk of Heart and Stars to celebrate local volunteers and commemorate people who have passed away during the lockdown. Residents decorated 28 laser-cut stars, which were then fitted with solar cells so that it could light up in the dark. In the first weeks of COVID lockdown, when personal protective equipment was in high demand and the factory was temporarily closed, the team set up 3D printers in their spare bedrooms and produced 426 visors for pharmacies and care homes in the city. Take a look at the factory's highlights of 2020.
Next, we turn to Knowle West's community-led housing initiative, We Can Make, which has also been exploring the potential of digital manufacturing. Since 2016, We Can Make has been working with local people to explore new ways of building affordable homes, when and where they need them. This year, the team supported local families to submit 2 planning applications to build the first We Can Make homes. We hope construction can begin in early 2021. As you've already seen in the factory's highlight reel, in 2020, a beautiful wooden pavilion was built outside KWMC. 10 Knowle West residents took part in online workshops between April and July to experiment with digital construction tools and explore how they could be used to build new homes and spaces in our communities. In September 2020, a crew of people aged 10 to 76 built the pavilion in just over 10 days. These films offer a behind-the-scenes look at what the building and interacting with the pavilion has been like.
What we're demonstrating with this project is that it is possible to do things different. Housing is a huge issue here in Knowle West and across the rest of the country. So I guess we're offering this up as a kind of an experiment space to try these things out, and then other communities could learn from that as well.
There is a huge amount of jobs being lost due to increasing amount of automation in the built environment, and we're trying to engage people in utilizing new technologies and tools to upskill them and upskill their potential job opportunities. The ambition of the project was really to create a toolkit for collaborative construction that would engage the community in what we refer to as a values-centered way, bringing their needs, their lived experiences to the center of the project in developing new ways of building homes.
So this is really in the context of a background around automation and prefabrication often being completed off-site and really kind of disconnected from the spaces in which that housing would then kind of be occupied over time.
So this is the very first step in a much longer process for providing homes in this community.
What we're trying to do here in Knowle West is really put the kind of tools that automated architects work with in terms of digital design, construction, how do you get those into the hands of community members? How do you make sure that some of the value really sticks to the local community rather than just washing through it?
The housing system we're using for this project is called Block Type A, and it's what we call a discrete housing system, which is essentially based on a series of Lego-like building parts that are exactly the same, that can be combined in lots of different ways to create a huge amount of spatial variation. And what this means is that we can use one building part repeated over and over again in lots of different orientations that give us the possibility to create many different kinds of spatial configurations that can respond to differing needs.
I'm a builder by trade with a bricklaying background. I now know a little bit about code. I kind of understand how code works. So I've learned about that. I know about modern methods of construction. I've learned about CNC milling machines. I'm slowly learning about robotics and construction. I'm middle-aged now, I'm 57. I've started learning about digital construction now. It's been a fantastic experience.
I learned so many skills already, like from assembling blocks, and also I use some tools for construction that I've never used before. It's actually fantastic to be surrounded by people that is interested in the same context as you are.
The change that I'm seeing throughout the process of building is the community is almost being activated in new ways. We have people who are going to feel motivated to address certain issues around the place that they live, have confidence, and now hopefully have opportunity to really engage in these processes and ways of designing and making at a much greater scale than ever before.
The most important thing that's going to come out of it is going to give me ownership of my community, with my community.
We managed to create a space together, even with the backdrop of everything else weird going on in the world, that we had this space together with really meaningful conversations, really meaningful connections, talking about what we needed, what our neighbourhood needed. Having the pavilion here has just been such a morale boost for us as an organisation, for the people involved. It was really nice just to have a tangible demonstration of what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, my motivation coming to the project was kind of twofold, really. The first was I've been involved with the We Can Make project for probably best part of 2 years now, and every single time we take on we move into a new chapter that We Can Make, it's always something completely different. We're trying to, we're trying to set up a local community housing scheme, and the way we've gone about it with all the different workshops and projects is just, it's always exciting, it's always innovative, and it's always quite different to what you expect. So I kind of went into this with open arms, really looking forward to finding out about these modern methods of construction that are kind of coming into the sort of the news quite a lot now. I mean, I'm a traditional builder, bricklayer by trade, and although I'm a little bit sceptical, or I was sceptical about modern methods of construction, being a traditional builder, I'm still trying to look at it with open eyes, trying to see what it was all about. So when I went, going into the workshops, I went in there with a sort of open eyes and a really sort of an optimistic approach to what was coming.
If this takes off big time, and I really, really hope it does, it's going to put pressure on the planning departments to be able to be more flexible and more open and not so rigid about what they do and what they say no to and stuff like this. I mean, because I think, this can be the beginning of some quite sort of constructive changes. It's going to benefit the community and not just the upper classes, because, I mean, it's a well-known fact that in Clifton, you can get sort of 84% anything presented to council in Clifton, 84% will get passed, and yet anything from this side of town presented to the council, only about 34% get passed. Why is the answer? You got to ask yourself why. I mean, there is some sort of a discrepancy there, which is not really helpful to the community in general.
Deprived areas, councils just assume what that area needs, and they put it in there. And if they do community consultation, they'll expect loads of effort and work from local people to come along. They won't be like paid or reimbursed for their time doing that, and then their ideas won't be taken into consideration anyway, but they'll just have ticked a box. And I think that that's like a long-standing problem that a project like this kind of highlights, the like growth and need for this. You know, if we were to like look at putting a new structure in the middle of Fieldwood Broadway, and we did it in this way, that the community were not just asked to contribute their ideas but paid for their time to do that, then they would take ownership over that to the extent where you'd protect it from vandalism. And it's just that classic thing about just thinking, oh, we know what they need, you know?
I don't feel it's my house, I feel like it's our house because we're all part of it.
You know, I'm a great believer is you plan for your future or be planned for. And I don't want to be planned for. It's as simple as that, really.
Actually, you need to do your best to work towards pure understanding. It's like that utopian ideal, isn't it? Like, if you try, you'll never reach utopia, but the point's to keep walking towards it, and through doing that, you change. And I think if you walk towards pure understanding, you'll never reach pure understanding, but you're trying to understand, you're trying to walk in other people's shoes, and you're trying to bend your thinking. You can still be a specialist in your area, but just leave your office door open.
This year, many people have been looking for ways to stay fit and keep active. In January 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago, we worked with communities across Bristol and the National Institute for Health Research's Applied Research Collaboration West to explore what physical activity means to people and how the government guidelines on this topic could be communicated more effectively. We worked with 4 people to create short films and tell their stories of physical activity and how they incorporate it into everyday life. Hear from Abia, Ben, Leslie and Vince as they explore the question, how do you move?
My name is Abia and I live in Eastern Bristol. I used to cycle a lot as a child and I cycled for fun. I never did any road cycling before or even seen cycling as a way of exercising or anything. I just seen cycling as a fun way to entertain myself as a child. We cycled a lot. My dad took us on rides and that just made me love cycling. I didn't really exercise before, so I think not exercising made me kind of like down in general. Well, my life has changed quite a bit. I have more energy in general. I'm a happier person. I feel like I have a new life from before. Before, things seemed to be impossible. Everything was impossible. It was like harder. Now that I cycle, which I thought for me was already like something I couldn't do as an adult. So when I did that, it kind of gave me like empowerment in doing more other things and saying yes to things I would have said no before. Well, the only barriers I had to overcome was my own like mental barriers I had. I was telling myself all sorts of things like I shouldn't be cycling, or how am I going to cycle with my hijab on, how am I going to cycle on with my dress. The more I did it, the more comfortable I felt with it, so the only barriers I did have was my own. I think you can cycle as a Muslim woman. There's nothing that says in the religion that you can't. So before, when I was planning for a journey, I often include money, bus money, taxi money, especially with children, because they don't really like walking. They're not big fans of walking. But now that I just keep in mind that exercising is not just for me, for them too. So I try to encourage them to walk more. I've trained as a cycling instructor. It was a 4-day course I did at Life Cycle. At first that was really like something I was thinking like, oh, how am I supposed to do that? Because everybody at my course was really like physically fit and looked like a cyclist. And it just helped me understanding that there's no actual way a cyclist look. Everybody can be one. That helped me in training other women like me. Going to the gym can be like hard, like time consuming. So I think cycling as a form of traveling, that is a way of exercising. Zoe, my neighbor, she's the one who inspired me. If I can be the one inspiring somebody else, I would really like that to be. Because it is doable for every woman. I don't think it has an age or religion or anything that people can't do it, so yes.
I'm Ben Barker and I live in Southfield, Bristol. I do a bit of gardening and I walk around a lot. I don't do any special activity. I'm 80 years old. I've never been immensely active in my life, but a lot of my work of campaigning is around making it easy for people just to do the basic stuff, like walk to the shops. That it's sometimes very difficult just to walk around the neighbourhood because the place is cluttered with all sorts of things that get in your way. If you're young and fit already, that's fine, but if you're getting on a bit, and especially if you've got some sort of disability, like, you might be balance problems or eyesight problems, that sort of thing, then it can be bloody dangerous walking around parts of Bristol. Every now and again we do what we call the clutter patrol, which is a group of us walk along, usually one of the retail streets, and just go in and chat to the shopkeepers. If they're able or something else is in the way, just say, could you move it a little bit? Just a few inches possibly. And they're pretty okay with that. They say, oh, thanks very much, or we didn't realise that, and we're happy to do that, and so on. So most people, if you remind them, they're fine. What they could do about making it easier for people to walk is to do things like they've done in London, for example, like banning the parking of cars on pavements, and making it being as understanding for pedestrians as they are for motorists. If I blocked the road, the blockage would be removed. If I blocked it a second time, I'd probably be arrested. But people can block the pavements till the cows come home. What we did a couple of years ago was to get some artists to do various plaques, and here's an example of one. And we called this the Sunflower Walkway, and we talked to people about the importance of keeping the pavements clear and so on, so that everyone can walk, and it's easy and pleasant for people to get round. And most people are very positive about the whole thing. That if people are encouraged to be able to walk around, they'll be healthier. You talk to the doctors and so on, very often they say it's not, as I say, running a marathon, swimming the channel, that's fine. But for most people, just walking about fairly regularly is a good basis for good health.
Hello, I'm Leslie Barry, and I am a fan of parkrun and staying active. Before I started running, I thought I was happy, and I'm always a glass half full sort of person, happy-go-lucky, happy with my life generally. And then I suddenly realised that my friendship group was getting smaller. I was less interested in going out. I was less interested in buying clothes that looked nice on me. I'd become bigger, and although on the surface I was still a very happy person, inside I was I was missing big things and missing going out and becoming more insular. It was difficult to believe that even doing a small activity was worth it because I was so unfit. Just running for 1 minute was actually quite difficult. So I was at a barbecue with some neighbours, and one of my neighbours said they were going to start the Couch to 5K, and they are a slim, much younger than me individual, so I thought, well, I'm not going to do it with them. And then another neighbour said they were going to do it, and they looked more like me, so they were sort of a little bit bigger, still younger than me, but I thought, actually, if they're going to do it, then I can do it. And although I didn't do it with them, I was encouraged that anybody could do this. I was absolutely blown away by the running community. So it was so inclusive, it was welcoming, there was everybody here as well. There was sort of young people, there was old people, there was bigger people, smaller people. There was just the diversity of backgrounds, of ethnicity. It was just, everything seemed to be there, and everybody was just interested in getting on with their own running and encouraging others. And there didn't seem to be the judgment that I had expected. I started running in 2016, and I went for a routine mammogram. I didn't feel any illness, I didn't expect anything, and I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. The love and support that I got from parkrun was fantastic, and for Run From Life and from the running community as a whole. I did carry on running through my treatment, so when I was well enough, I ran. If I look back 5 years ago, before I'd started running, I would have never believed the difference that it's made in my life. Just the difference is huge, because running had changed my life, and I wanted to have the opportunity to try and change other people's lives. I realised how important it was when you were suffering slightly with low self-esteem, if you didn't believe in yourself, to have somebody come alongside you and believe in you. And the sense of achievement is amazing if people can actually do it. And everybody can do it, if they believe.
I'm Vincent White. I live in Bristol, and I'm quite keen on physical activities and well-being. I choose to take part in physical activity though, for the sense of feeling physically well and good in myself, like participating in various different sports, such as boxing, badminton, swimming, aqua aerobics. My particular methods of staying fit are to get into a routine, a regular routine. I do this boxing session once a week, you know, which is our weekly workout of boxing techniques. You know, I just come for the training and the staff and the camaraderie and the people you meet, and you know, it's been a real positive outcome for me. Like, you know, once you form the habit, it's second nature then. Like, and you know, it's good for the soul and the mind and the body. Like, you know, it's just getting the message out there, like in a way that people's going to respond to it. Like, take the first step. You know. No matter how daunting it may seem to you, but taking that initial first step and turning up for the first session, and keep persevering. It's best to take it nice and slow and gentle and listen to what the teachers say, and hopefully you'll form a habit and you'll keep coming for life. I've been coming to the session for 7 or 8 years, and I've never lost a fight though. Because I've never had a fight.
The final section of today's stream focuses on our work as Bristol Living Lab. We define a living lab as a place where people from different backgrounds can come together and create new ideas and technologies, testing them out in real-life community environment rather than behind closed doors in a laboratory. The first film was produced for an international conference in September and explores what we're doing to make our activities accessible and inclusive to all. We finish with a film telling the story of the To Fro app, which was designed this year to match local volunteers with people who need help in the community.
Bristol Living Lab, Diversity and Inclusion. Hello, I'm Lorraine, Manager of Bristol Living Lab, and during this talk you will also hear from other members of our team. The European Network of Living Labs fosters research and innovation in communities. It is therefore crucial that we address the lack of diversity within the network, and that as Living Labs we develop more inclusive practices. I will be sharing Bristol Living Labs' approach to diversity and inclusion, including some of our values, projects, methods and key learning. Bristol Living Lab is a place where citizens, artists, technologists, businesses, researchers and public sector organisations come together to co-create ideas, tools and technologies to address local challenges, to innovate and explore new possibilities. It is led by Knowle West Media Centre. We are a non-profit organisation with over 20 years' experience of working with communities and individuals to understand how digital technologies can be utilised to meet local needs. We are based within the community of Knowle West, an area of approximately 5,500 households in South Bristol. It is an area that ranks highly in the UK government indices of multiple deprivation. We work collaboratively with people from different backgrounds to develop new and creative models for achieving positive social change. Equity is one of our core values. We should reflect on what the terms diversity, inclusion and equity mean. These terms are often used interchangeably. If we struggle to define them, we will struggle to find the solutions. Diversity is about having different identities represented, for example, different races or genders, whilst inclusion is about people with different identities being and feeling valued, their thoughts, ideas and perspectives. Equity ensures everyone has access to the same opportunities. We recognise that advantages and barriers exist, that we don't all start from the same place. Equity begins by acknowledging that unequal starting place and makes a commitment to correct and address the imbalance. So why is this important for Living Labs? Many people face discrimination, including Black, Asian and other visible minority ethnic communities, people who experience socio-economic disadvantage, people with a disability. It is essential for organisations such as ours who have influence to support people who experience discrimination, whose voices aren't often heard and who face barriers to living safe and fulfilled lives. So they can achieve their ambitions, and together we can create a fairer society that values and respects difference. Bristol Living Labs' approach is centred on working collaboratively with people from different backgrounds to develop new and creative models for achieving positive social change, to ensure the inclusion of individuals and groups at risk of social and digital exclusion, and to support them to become active citizens with equal access to the city's opportunities. Our practice draws upon socially engaged arts, participatory design, co-creation and coaching methods. We are a partner in Parkos, a 3-year participatory science communication project funded under Horizon 2020. We are developing principles for diversity and inclusion to guide the development of 3 citizen science case studies in Belgium, Finland and the UK. As part of this, we are reflecting on our approach to diversity and inclusion, including our organisational values, methods and tools, accessibility to spaces, events and materials, reviewing best practice, sharing experiences and learning from others. We recognise it's important that our buildings, equipment, events and activities and communications are accessible. Our communications manager has recently been part of a cohort studying the Bristol Accessible Venues training course, and we'll be using the learning to improve accessibility. It's also important to think beyond this towards a stronger form of inclusion where questions of knowledge, representation, power and cultural change are addressed. We'll now tell you about some of our projects that seek to address this. Mina, Head of Young People and Emerging Creatives, will tell you about one of her team's projects.
From Her Digital was an 8-week training program designed to support women into education, further training or into jobs. People applied interested in becoming either web developers, graphic designers, digital marketers, a whole range of opportunities that exist within the digital and creative tech sphere. We decided that the program would be led by an all-female cohort, and so we actually found that for the participants it was really inspiring for them to work with women that were working within those careers and then offering that training. And again, being part of a female cohort, it meant that it took away any kind of barriers or any kind of judgment, and those women formed their own peer group. We focused on skills, knowledge and tools, so women had access to cameras, tech, kit they didn't normally have access to. They were able to develop that new knowledge through the participants and the trainers on the programme, and they learned new skills by building websites and by designing brands and logos using the software. We tried to take out all the barriers, so we offered childcare and other caring allowances, we offered some travel, transport, and that enabled women to participate fully without some of the usual problems you might have when you're returning to work. The last thing we did was we focused on women that were underrepresented within the tech industry. So not just women from Black, Asian, minority ethnic backgrounds, but people that were also carers, people that were disabilities, or people that had been returning to work from a long period of time.
Now Zoe and Josephine in our Sustainable Neighbourhoods team will tell you about Our Digital City.
Our Digital City is a Bristol City Council impact-funded project which aims to make Bristol more digitally inclusive, a city where no one is left behind and everyone can access the benefits of technology. We are collaborating with underserved communities across Bristol on their terms. Recent Bristol City Council data shows that although 82% of households are comfortable using digital services, the percentage drops significantly in deprived areas to 72%. Increasing this is key to make it easy for everyone to participate in democracy, elevating voices that are often unheard to be on the same level as those from more affluent areas.
In practice, this is meeting people where they are, giving them opportunities to learn skills they want to by sharing stories like podcasting and filmmaking with your mobile phone and community journalism, making connections like digital manufacturing and also physically making things, but also making virtual connections between communities, creating positive change, empowering people with new skills and confidence, exploring new tools and approaches, using citizen sensing to air quality and noise pollution. A recent example project gave participants training to make films about nature in their local areas with people in Lawrence Hill and Filwood. We also delivered VR taster workshop sessions for the elderly, giving them opportunities to use technologies completely new to them in spaces that they felt safe and confident.
So what have we learned? Diversity and inclusion must be a long-term commitment, not a tick box exercise. We all need to challenge discrimination and prejudice. Knowle and the Living Labs, who are a member of the network, must support those who experience discrimination and strive for equity. We can create safe spaces for discussion, but we have to move from plans to action. We need to reflect, learn and continually improve. Thanks for listening. For more information, these are our contact details.
In April of this year, and soon after the initial lockdown, Carolyn encouraged me to get involved with the EU versus Virus hackathon and asked if I had any ideas. This is when I spoke with Lucy at the Knowle West Alliance, who told me about the fantastic work they were doing with volunteers to help the vulnerable, and the struggles their coordinators were having with growing spreadsheets and email chains.
What we could see at that time was working, but it was quite manual, quite a lot of manual labour involved really in each stage of the process, a lot of different emails, a lot of different, really having to focus. So we talked about what could a more streamlined version look like that was a bit more selective about the information that people received, that made things easier for the volunteer coordinators. So the early brief was, how do we connect with our volunteers in a way that alerts them to something that's relevant to them, and how do we make sure that process can be held by a volunteer coordinator in a light touch way?
And so with a really clear and well-defined challenge, I got in touch with some incredibly smart people that I've met during my time at the Media Centre. And amazingly, they offered their time to help out. So we had a look around at the current market and we were disappointed to find that nothing fitted the Alliance's tried and tested ways of working. So we set out to build our own open source project based on common and open web standards. And this birthed 2Fro. So taking inspiration from modern on-demand request apps like Deliveroo and Uber, we streamlined things for the Alliance, yet we focused on how to also reach digitally isolated people and enable more human connections. Volunteers can log in and see what's available to them depending on their preferences, where they can then offer their time for things like a dog walk, picking up a prescription, or collecting a food shop. And once the volunteer and resident get to know each other, they often take things offline and start organising things between themselves.
So something that struck me has been a few quotes of people saying things like, I didn't really think that people were kind, but now I do. And that's been a real shift in perspective for some people, that who didn't really realise that they were a part of a community, but that people have been really free and generous with their time and support. And that's really made a profound difference to people's perspective of where they live and the community that surrounds them, and that people have really, really felt that kindness. The meals that have been delivered, the help above and beyond the jigsaw that got dropped off because somebody was bored, or the plank of wood that came because they knew that someone needed their gate fixed. You know, the little bits of people who've been going above and beyond has made such a big difference to people feeling really cared for and supported.
Since March 2020, over 200 volunteers have offered their help, with around 80 of them still regularly active today. And some 430 residents have called, many of whom still receive fortnightly check-ins. We're now working on the next stages of TwoFro, with an aim to offer what we've learnt and the tools we've made to other hubs around the city.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a real lasting legacy here. That, you know, what we've got here is a tool of being able to connect resident to resident and to provide people with a point of contact or an open door for how to find what is going on in their community. So making sure that this resource is supported by different organisations and that they have that sort of input and ownership and connection will provide a point of contact for residents going forward. Within our community, we have so many resources of people who know how to do things, people who are willing and happy to share their knowledge and skill, and that maybe this TwoFro could be used going forward in that really constructive and helpful way of joining up people who just want to know something. So, you know, moving away from feeling like it's emergency or that it's charity, but more about how do we share the knowledge and the skills in our community.
If you or someone you know within Bristol needs help at this time, please call 0800 694 0184.
This marks the end of the film portion of our live stream today, but we've only just scratched the surface of what's happened in 2020. If you'd like more information about what we've been up to, you can read our latest annual report, which is available at our website, kwmc.org.uk/about. Just follow the links from there and you'll be able to read it online. As we head into our annual general meeting, there may be a slight delay while we get our tech up and running. So please bear with us, get a cup of tea, and we'll see you back here in a couple of minutes to meet the team face to face or screen to screen and hear what's coming up in 2021. Thanks ever so much for joining us. See you soon.